Alright, we are back after much ado. Today we're going to be carving a bear. We have 1.5 by 1.5 inches by 6 inches, and I got this off of eBay. I got a bear out of a shorter one, which is the common grab bag size. It's I think they're 3 or 4 inches, and the bear sits down. So we're gonna start out by taking the back of the head off, or shaping the back of the head. We're basically doing a corner piece. If you've seen my other videos, the corner faces. So we're going to, it's hard to draw the corner pieces onto the wood. His ears will be here, his nose is going to be about right here, his muzzle. So basically he's facing, this is the front part of the bear. And we'll take off all of the edges, and it'll make the piece more comfortable to hold down on the bottom as well. And we're not going to have any sharp corners on the finished piece. Oops. That was going into the grain there. You guys want to look at a piece of wood beforehand. They cut these pieces of wood with the grain. You can see that the grain's pretty much going this way. You can see here there's a little bit of, it goes over to the side. And also sometimes when you're carving directly with the grain, it can cause the most tear outs. So if you don't want it to tear out, you can see it happen a little bit right there. You would just diagonal your cut just a little bit and get a clean cut off there. Alright, so back of the head, we're going to keep shaping that a little bit. We are carving today with a Deep Woods Venture knife. This is the scalpel model. I've been carving with it for some time, so the blade is a different shape and it's smaller than it used to be. This is, I believe, the cheapest model. It's just over $20, I believe, still. And I always recommend the Deep Woods Ventures knives very highly. Okay, so I started doing the front here. This is where we're going to have his muzzle, his nose, and mouth. And I've done a few of these bears, and they've kind of varied on where the muzzle is, how big the ears are. And I liked it a little bit closer to the top. You can see I did this maybe 3/4 of an inch down. You can change that later and give yourself a little room to work with until you get your ears real formed out. And then once the ears are there, you can't really make those any shorter. And keep taking a little sharp. So we're going to take down, the top of the head's going to be like down here. We're going to take out all this wood to form out those ears. Alright, we're going to take as much off as we can while we're going with the grain, so that we don't have to do so much digging in between the ears. This is maybe the most difficult part of this project. Oops, slipped up a little bit. Doing live audio for the ASMR fans. Alright, so we're gonna bring, we don't lose a lot of shape doing this bear, mostly off the top and back, but I've been bringing in the head a little bit and the ears. On a few of them, the bears have gotten Mickey Mouse ears, so I'm trying to stay away from that. They don't look too bad. If you look up carved bears that actual people did and not a router, a lot of times the muzzle gets too big on the face, proportionally to the face, and it kind of looks like a dog. And that's like the main pitfall, I think, of shaping these guys' heads. And you can see I'm doing curved strokes here, And we may flatten that out later. It's just easier to try to a curve stroke. You're still kind of going with the grain. You hear it bit in a little bit there. That's okay. When you're shaping the nose and the muzzle, I kind of think about it like a stop sign. It's an octagon shape. Got your one up here, and then you do your 45 degree angles, and then your sides. Same on the bottom. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And this grain's not too thick. You can feel with pieces of wood, some will be lighter and heavier than others, and it's usually because of how far apart the grain is. And the ones that are tighter are usually going to be more dense, and often those are better for detail, but it's going to be harder to carve. You're going to have to apply more pressure. Let's get out in between the ears. So we're going to take some more off of here and make it easier. And sometimes those rings don't have anything to do with how dense the wood is. Wood rings, they're called growth rings on trees. They form. Oh, you can see how tough that was to get through. We're going right against the grain. We're gonna keep switching sides, so we're not going like actually against the grain. I guess I'm going crosswise here. Yeah, the growth rings are, it is basically, the trees are going to grow much faster during the summertime, and so that's going to be where there's more space on a softwood tree, which is like a Christmas tree or a pine tree. You'll see that it's porous, and you'll feel that in other woods as well. It'll be not quite as good a detail. Where it's denser is the winter time. The trees don't grow as fast, but they still keep growing, so it becomes more and more dense. And so there's other factors that affect the tree growth, what it's eating, maybe it's genetics on how porous and dense it might be outside of summer and winter. Right, so he's already kind of looking like a bear, right? Tough. This has been pretty good basswood, so I have been able to go up against the grain a little bit, and I mean like going diagonal against the grain, like for these ears. The knife is nice and sharp, and see we got that without any tear out. Maybe it's been a good year for basswood trees. I hope it's been a good year for all trees, but I doubt it with our civilization. Okay, back to carving. So we're kind of doing the side of the face here while we're shaping these ears. I'll leave them pointy. I'll shape them a little bit later, because they can be brought down a little bit if you don't shape them all the way. I'm kind of jumping around here, and basically it's kind of carving the easiest route, the route of least resistance. So keep going around, and it also helps to keep moving from different spots, because your brain kind of recalibrates when you go back and look at a spot. You say, okay, this needs to happen here. done some of the ears without a roundness on the outside and just kind of going up. You tread into territory of other animals, and if that happens, if it starts looking like a different animal, check your ears and check the muzzle. There's another feature which we're not at yet. But bears are pretty easy. They come out pretty well, whatever your skill level is, if you practice it. It's one of the reasons why they're so popular in chainsaw carving. The general shape is, I mean, for the whole bodies, we kind of already have it. It's basically an upside down U, and then you have Mickey Mouse ears. Yeah, so his ears are very large. What big ears do you have? Also very thick right now. We're going to take the width down a little bit more before we shave them, so it'll be easier to get those cuts in. And when I'm saying that, I mean the path of least resistance. We're still making them thinner is with the grain on both sides, and when we go make these cuts on top, it'll be much easier to do that. And those are relatively not as with the grain as the others. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. I like it to have a little curve on the back of the ears and ramp into that ear, instead of having the front. You want the bears have like a, oh, I really messed this up. Bear with me, folks. Look at a little grizzly. Yeah, let's take him down a little bit on the sides. Take those side tips off. Yeah, the front of them, you can get a 90-degree angle in there, make that sharp. Because in reality, they have, you know, a bit of an inside to their ears. You could maybe carve that in, but they have fur that sticks out in front of their ears enough that it's abstractly, that's enough, is just to have a flat surface. So at this point, I'm trying to decide whether we want to make the ears farther apart, or if we make them smaller from the outside. And I think we're going to make them smaller from the outside. I think we're going to do a little bit of both. See, now that we got those ears nice and thin, this is nice little fun cuts going down the side. Yeah, we're gonna go on a little bit more. They're going Mickey Mousey, people. And what makes them look like that is because they curved in. I've had some of the bears, like their ears will go kind of straight up on the sides. But again, you kind of get into raccoon territory or fox territory, Colorado territory. I'm sorry, that was a bad reference. Alright, and so at this point, we can lower the face a little bit, the muzzle, and because his ears ended up coming down so much that we're gonna bring his face down. And so I didn't shape out his muzzle yet, because if I'd done that, I couldn't lower it. Right? If we'd done these bottom cuts, so we're gonna bring that nose down. this is what I don't like. Is it got too far in, it got too deep, and it's kind of like a bit of a brow. I'm not sure how to explain what happens. It's just, this is what most bears are gonna look like when you carve them. This is what all my bears look like. There's like German Black Forest vintage carved bears, and sometimes they're Russian, and they make them as toys, and sometimes, I forget what you call them, whirligigs, I guess, where you pull a string and the arms will move. And the shape that's been like formulated, evolved over, I assume, a very long time. It's just brilliant, but they do it all rounded, from the nose all the way back, and they just look really nice. And I was trying to kind of get there a little bit, and I feel like most of the bears that I'm carving, they look like that in the beginning, and then I lose it. I don't know. Maybe another 100 bears or so. So I got out of carving a little bit over the last few years, and about a month ago, 2 months ago, was really the first time I was able to really sit down and work on some stuff. And I did bears early in my carving career, a long time ago. And it's a nice project to get you going, and the cuts are satisfying. A lot of times when you're doing faces or other more detailed projects, you know, you're doing all this detail work, and you get a lot of nice sweeping cuts, very basic geometry, just kind of sit and relax with. Alright, so we're going to keep bringing that down. To get out big chunks, if you're new to carving or you're not carving, it looks like maybe I'm taking out, like removing wood very quickly. The knife is sharp and it's decent wood, but it's also, when I'm removing wood, I go for like especially in the beginning, like I did here, I'm doing a cut that goes with the wood and the knife the best way possible. And so if that's not the shape I want, you know, you do it a little bit outside of that, and then go in and do more detailed cuts. This is something that just happens when you spend time carving, because your cuts are something that are, you know, in the realm of kung fu, or I don't know, Zen, and you want, you know, you're trying to, it's satisfying to make better cuts, basically, and your hand and your brain start to learn what makes the best cuts, and then so eventually you use those as tools to shape out things. And this is there's like a Scandinavian style, when you're not finishing with sandpaper, you really want your cuts to be nice. And so, and I don't know when sandpaper came out, but doesn't seem to be used on a lot of early wood carving work or woodwork. So there's styles, and I've seen different names. Some people call it like plain carving, and some minimalism, cubism, I don't know. But you leave, because you could, with tools, you could round all this stuff out really well, but instead you use the geometry as a look, a style, and use it to the advantage of your piece. And it's a bit of a puzzle getting it to work in your favor, but it's something that I go after, especially on my if I'm doing a carving a few times. It's nice to do projects, you know, multiple times. Because your brain remembers the mistakes you made, and we're gonna make this ear just got a little bit smaller right here. Your brain remembers the mistakes you made. I forgot what I was talking about. Right, and so what we're talking about with the cutting, because you kind of have to plan your cuts once you're getting them really Lord, I need to cut and take a break. Alright, we're good. We're gonna take a break after these messages, folks. Back. I believe I was talking about how the brain works, and my brain stopped working. I'm sorry I say so much while I talk, especially while I'm carving, doing live recording. I'm kind of thinking about multiple things. Anyway, it's nice to do a project a few times. You get better at it. You feel yourself leveling up as opposed to moving from one project to the next. Bring that muzzle in. So one thing about bears that will keep it kind of looking like a bear is having, like, they have large faces, and it goes kind of past their face. It's like their fur basically, and their necks too. I mean, this is why we kind of stick with a U shape. They basically will do like an angle or down here or something like that. And bears have just like, some of them have very large face area proportionally, especially with their eyes and their muzzle, compared to a dog or something whose side of their face would be cut off there. There wouldn't be all this on the outside. Okay, so we're going to start. What I've been doing with these bears is they're in kind of a prayer stance. That could be any religion. It could be a Buddhist monk prayer. I've tried to do arms down, and you have to make the bear a lot smaller for it to work. Like a lot of these corner projects that I do, you're kind of doing a faux full 3D, and it works more when you use up the space as best as you can. The arms forward, take the shoulders out of the side view basically. So when I've done an arms down one, I have to take the head and everything in a bunch and make it smaller. And we're going to do that cut about here. We're kind of mimicking what's going on with the muzzle, right? It's kind of, the head is a bit of a stop sign as well. bring it in a little bit. Okay, so we're gonna say the hands are about right here. And bears usually have they kind of have a mane. It's not really separate from their head a whole lot. If you look at them, they kind of have a few lines, but at this minimalistic level, we're not really gonna show that a whole lot. Alright, so that'll probably go up, and you could have it connect with these lines as well. And so we're gonna do a little triangle shape here. Side. It's a bit of a tough cut to get into, really digging in. So take your time with it. Let's take a look at this guy. So we'll do the bottom of the arms. Make them a little bit low because you can switch it later. You see they're off a little bit. We'll just went down a little bit lower. No problem. And then we'll do the bottom of the hands. Connect those cuts. And then do the same on the side. And this one's a little bit lower, so we'll bring it up. Okay, so that's basically what the arm's going to look like. And if you want to, you can make a separation now. I've been thinking it would be really cute to add a piece on to this project. And I think that you would drill a small hole here, and then you'd be able to put a toothpick in there, or a carved piece, and then put a little flag on it, you know, so they could say, I love you, or whatever message you want to put on there. I think the classic one would be Bear With Me, right? It's maybe a little cheesy. And so you can see his arms look a little bit like faux arms right now, so we need to distinguish the shoulder a little bit. Then the shoulders could have made it a little bit higher. I'm not real happy with that. Yeah, so this guy's got a much bigger head area than my other ones. Probably should have had the shoulders a little bit higher. But we'll carve this down a little bit so you have it proportional. But for now, we're going to work on the legs. So the feet, you just kind of want to, when you're working on the legs and feet, you just make sure that it still stands up, right? And so we're going to take off a lot of wood here. And you can take your time with this. This video is already getting a little bit long. So we're just going to chunk these off. bears are gonna be thinner. We don't want this like indent to be real noticeable. You can see there how it teared out because I was going with the grain, and I'm using that to my advantage in this situation. Sometimes you don't always want that. Oh, it's a big piece. Oh yeah, it's probably too much, and you can see that happen because this grain over here is going that direction. That was maybe way too thin. We'll try to pull it off. Again, you can mess up on these bears pretty bad and they still come out pretty nice. That is really terrible. Oh man, this is maybe not going to stand up. I hope I don't have to start this over. This is the back of the bear. I've been leaving kind of the corners a little bit. Maybe take them off just a little bit. Well, I mean the corners, I mean these sides of that original block. Yeah, I really messed up on those legs. Alright, so we're going to take in the side of this face. What's going on here, so that he can be a bit thinner. I can't believe I tore that huge piece of wood off. Yeah, so you don't have to separate the legs, I guess. We might try to salvage this piece by doing that. This is a mess. Man, it just goes in real. Alright, so what we're going to do is start shaping this. Now we've taken a lot of wood off, we're going to start doing a little bit of his stomach. Just going to do some rounded cuts to shape it out. And at some point you can kind of end it. Make some little triangle cut where his legs would meet together. Yeah, I'll show you the other bears that I've carved. They're all with the same idea, but they're pretty different in their shaping. Alright, so on the back, see that? He has that kind of nice curve, looks like a bear body. We're going to put a little bit of a tail, maybe like right here, kind of low. Bears don't have very long legs. They don't always stand up, it's kind of not that often. Which is good because legs are really hard to deal with on carvings, especially small carvings. And with a light wood such as this. And then you can see his tail there, and we're gonna smooth out the back end of that tail, but leave them a little bit of a butt. I don't think bears actually have that big of tails. It's just kind of when they are stylized and art stuff, you do a little bit of one. It looks cute, but it's up to you. It makes it easier to kind of, it covers up. Because basically the anatomy there is not really going to be seen, and it's just like a bunch of hair. So it's nice to put something in sort of a flat space. Alright, and this is, his legs could have been a little bit longer. Yeah, this one proportionally, he has a lot more top half. Bears are like that anyway. They have very short legs, really big heads, and bodies are down the middle, I guess. They have really long abdomens. Okay, so this is what you're going to do on the legs. You just kind of, it's not my favorite part of the carving. On some of the other bears, I just kind of gave up on the legs. Because you're basically, you have to make a cavity there. You don't have to, we may not in this one. But it's a lot of cuts that are just, you're doing a V-cut over and over again. And you kind of have to tear the wood a little bit, and then afterwards clean it out. Yeah, we're gonna bring its head in more. So it's not ridiculously big. And you can see when I'm making it smaller, I'm just echoing those same cuts I already did. And so we could make his ears smaller. They're totally fine like this. If we really wanted to, we could do that. Just gonna bring that neck mane in a little bit. And there looks a little bit more proportional. And I'm kind of moving around here, as you can tell. Again, it helps the brain recalibrate what needs to happen. You just want to make sure that things don't get too muddy, so your brain can't recognize what's going on. It's one of the reasons why I kind of stick to this, kind of keeping the cuts clean, keeping it a little bit geometric. And I actually have been leaving them like that. You could certainly sand this project. And on some of them, I've done a few different types of fur on them. Tried out some different styles of basically the tool I use and the spacing and whether or not it's straight, completely straight. At this size, it seems like it's better to do just straight stylized for like grass, rows of grass. Go back to cutting out these legs. I'm not having a great nerve day. You can see my knife is a little unsteady, not so sure. And your anxiety level, you know, it affects your carving. But when you carve, it brings it down. It really trains. This is why people like this as a hobby. It trains your nervous responses down slowly. When I first started carving again, and it had been a while, I mean, I was like all over the place. My hands were shaking. I hadn't done anything with fine motor coordination in quite some time. And it's not just fine motor coordination. You're making these 3D shapes that need to be really steady with, you know, pressure with the wood. So yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why carving's been popular in the past, when people have time on their hands or they're stressed out. There was a general in the Civil War who would whittle. They wouldn't whittle anything. He would just get a piece of wood and whittle it down to nothing. Calm his nerves down. Alright, so we're doing the same thing. Make sure to do a little bit of cuts on the top there, so you don't do any like real bad tear outs when you're cutting these. You could do this slower, I guess, because they're so straight. It's still not gonna be real satisfying. It's just gonna tear out. I should do a bunch of weird cuts like that. Just like digging at it with like a shovel. And then after you look at it, you can kind of smooth it down. And so his hips got a little bit twisted. I don't know if you guys can see that. You can see it on the back. This side's like bigger. I'm gonna take it down a little bit. It's fine if he's got a little bit of attitude. Yeah, that fan is my heater. I can't carve outside. I'm in Colorado now, and my hands get too cold to function. Yeah, so this is pretty much the legs. It's not real exciting. It's not real elegant. We'll keep taking a look at that tail and bring it in a little bit. Okay, we're gonna go to the front side here. Yeah, we're just gonna have to deal with this kind of swayed motion from this tear out that happened. I was going with that. I was okay with it because I didn't realize how twisted, how slanted those grain were. I thought it would go straight down, but of course it went that way. It happens. Yeah, so I kind of like this this simple geometry with the clean cuts. I started to go off in the direction of just keeping the bear like that and not going to do any fur on it. I got like I was using a smaller piece of wood, and I got a bust piece out really well. You know, it was just kind of from here up. But then when I tried it on the next one, I didn't get just like the exact measurements down, and it didn't work, so I had to turn it back in one of these bears. So no problem. Okay, so you can see from the side here, it's looking pretty good. He's got a little bit of a belly. I'll bring that in a little tiny bit. Bears, they don't stand for a real long time because they just don't have like like humans have, like elongated feet. Basically, they're kind of like skis compared to other animals because you need that to stand for a long time. This guy, we're not going to bring it down to what would really be on a bear. It would be way too thin. If you wanted to, you could, and put some holes in there and some dowels and then attach them to something if you wanted to bring this project to a more realistic level. or just add another piece. Sometimes adding a base to the carvings like really makes it look like more finished, or like a piece instead of just something somebody's working on. Okay, so his stomach's a little bit out. Move this back a little bit. Stomach's a little bit poochy at the bottom, I feel like. Specifically, right in here, it comes out a little bit. I don't know. I'm looking at the monitor, it's hard to tell. Anyway. I'm being a little picky about it. And now it looks like it's really poochy at the bottom. Okay, so we're not going to go downwards because we already made that mistake to smooth this out. We're going to go up, do real controlled cuts. Alright, so you can see, even though we've been digging these holes, we have quite a bit of ways to go. We're going to smooth that out real quick. His legs are definitely going to be pretty close together, but the other ones, their legs are kind of far apart, and maybe this is better. We're going to pretend like it is. So yeah, I'm not sure if the straight legs are maybe better. You know, they look kind of funny, but they look good as a style. You have the option of making them kind of feet, where you make some top of the foot and then bring it up, and maybe even put knees in there. As long as they're not too weird, they're not a real important part of the look. And you see I just tore out again. I can't get to it because my knife isn't quite long enough, so we're going to go from the side. Alright. Back to this cutting. Yeah, the deeper you get in this cutting, the not so fun it gets to be. It needs to be deep enough, or I'm sorry, wide enough, so that you can clean the cut, right? Or else you're going to have a bunch of stuff hanging off. And that'll depend on what knife you're using. If you had more point to it, I guess you could make it thinner. Okay. So we can take in some of this. We'll see what the video length is on this. I might have to fast forward to some of this leg cutting. And of course, when you get close, you want to be careful you don't have your finger or anything on the other side of it. It's getting real narrow right now. And you may have to just kind of help some of these pieces out a little bit. Over time, when you're carving, you get a feel for what's acceptable, the strain you can put on your knife. You don't want to be prying things with it. You just, if you use a light pick, it's okay. Always, if you chip your knife, it's very tough to get it back into shape. and it will leave like little drag marks, basically like small tear outs. And if you lose your tip, which is kind of what we're sacrificing or gambling with here, you have to bring your, it's one of the reasons why this blade is smaller. If you get a new one of these, it's like out to here, and you see that it goes back a little bit. It used to be straight, and that's because I chipped the tip off of it, and you got to take a lot of metal off to make up for that. Yeah, he's gonna be okay. Watch him not stand up. Okay, so he's still okay. I want to move around to the rest of this carving, but I don't have to deal with editing a lot. And things skipping around. Clean up over here. And if you're planning to do fur, you don't have to clean up any of these lines. You can kind of see they're everywhere, like around the face. Actually, can't see them as clear on there. You can see these white marks. That's where. Oh, and I'm moving around. All right, we'll do that a little bit. Anyway, the fur will cover up a lot of the errors, so there's no reason to get all up in a bunch about it. We made that mistake again. There's maybe something else going on with the wood right there. Alright, and then we're gonna fix up this back leg. Oh. Yeah, if that happens, if you can't go sideways or the opposite direction, if you go a little bit slower and just diagonal your knife so it's not cutting straight on, it doesn't get. Because when those happen, the grain's so soft, or that it's so easy to go, that other parts of the wood are basically splintering and turning into their own pry bars. They're exerting leverage on the wood and just pulling off chunks that you may not want pulled off. And if you have a lot of little hangnail pieces, see those, or in between like a piece, it's always good at the end of a carving, if you have a clean toothbrush, to just go over, and it'll usually take those pieces off if you're not going to do sanding or anything. And if you do want to sand this project, I mean, it depends. If you're going to do fur, obviously there's not really any need to. But if you did want to sand it, you'd keep it, maybe the features even larger and the angles even more, so that when you're sanding it, it just doesn't turn into a round blob. And we got some black stuff on the ears, just from handling it. And it's on the table. It's a gross table. But the other thing you can, a lot of times when you're working on a piece for a while and maybe it's hot or something, you can get oil deposits build up on there. It'll be like little black marks everywhere. And with the toothbrush, you can actually use a small amount of water and soap, and just do it real quick, and then pat it off. So you don't have. Oh, see his. Look how tall they are in the back, and then in the front they're like real short. So there's a discrepancy. It's why I'm having a hard time getting those pieces out. We should have made his tail a lot lower. That's okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to bring this in to clean it up. Okay. We're gonna angle it to the back. Is that really how low it is? Oh my god. Alright, we may have to make the... No, we're gonna leave it. Nobody's gonna be looking at his butt, alright? Maybe after you give the gift and nobody's home. I would say that looks great. Alright, I'm gonna pick out that crap later with a toothbrush. It's all loose. But we're going to clean up the backside here a little bit. Yeah, so you may want to go in, as we've been doing after the first cuts, kind of do more and more angles to round it out, and you may even want to, I'll just do it now, have them so they go in a little bit and crease. Do it over here. Man, I can't like get close to it. The camera's in the way. It's fine. Yeah, when I'm whittling small pieces like this, okay, we're out of space there. So I'm pretty happy with this guy. I'm gonna leave him a little bit stylized. You know, you could maybe spend more time curving some of the areas. But we're gonna go. I kind of like him without the fur. I would maybe clean up the cuts a little bit more. We're gonna do eyes actually, and we could make this muzzle a lot smaller, make this a little more flat. Anyway, so the eyes they're a little bit difficult. I tried to do like circular eyes. It made it look too cartoony. So what's been making me, what seems to be the best, is just kind of make it a little bit happy. A little bit like a, what are those dogs called? They're always smiling. Anyway, we're just going to do a little bit of a slant so it goes up a little bit. And if you do like the fur, you kind of even don't have to do eyes. It can get a little bit lost in there. You want them a little bit close together, kind of near the top. It's a little bit hard to do from far away. Yeah, the eyes a little bit higher. Okay. Alright, well, he's looking a little bit Asian here, but it's okay. Bears come from all over the world. Yeah, I think on the other ones, my muzzle's been smaller, so the eyes are close together. Relatively on a bear's face, their face is pretty small compared to, or where their eyes and muzzle are pretty small compared to how large this mane is. But it looks good enough. So, for the fur, I'm going to be using, this looks like a V-tool. Let me see here, if I can get it close. But it's rounded at the bottom, right? And you could use a really small Vayner tool or U-tool as well. I also did one with a small V-tool. And we're basically just, again, it's going to be stylized. We're going to have them all pretty much going up and down. At this size level, it's hard if you start to get into curved and trying to do what the bear, what the fur might actually be doing. It's a little bit trickier. You could definitely try it though. And so we'll just start here, and we want to make them a little bit short. We're kind of doing a little bit of a dolphin dive on these cuts, pulling out a little bit so he doesn't look like he has really long hair. All right. And I will probably not show you all of this because it takes a while. And we're going to be careful around those eyes, or else we'll just lose them. Probably should have gone the other way on that. And when you're doing these, you could end up with a lot of little hangnails. Especially, it's going to happen, it's going to be a little tricky when you're doing these little end cuts, because they got to go in, and then the other one's got to go from the other side. You have two different directions of the grain you got to deal with, and have them meet somehow. So you can kind of stay away from them, you know, back the cut out a little bit before there, or we'll get to it in a second. So if you want to get, you can do these like kind of straight next to each other. They look a little bit better, especially on the larger parts of the bear. If you kind of space them against each other. What I mean by that is, on the next row, instead of doing exactly the same, you would shoot for in between that last one, and that'll give the hair a little bit more of a complex feel. On the top, we'll curve it a little bit. We'll go with the wood shape. These look like, this is a bit of a U-tool. They do that dolphin dive cut a little bit better. When you cut with a V-tool, they end up dragging out for a little bit longer. It's harder to do a scoop cut. on his ears, we're not going to be, we're going to go a little bit different direction. The ears will tear out kind of easy. You can lose a piece of them. We left these a little bit thick, so it's not going to be an issue. Go from that other side, try not to stab ourselves. And then from the back, a little bit of radial pattern there. Oops, turn around a little bit. Yeah, see, I went in a different direction and it got a little bit funky. Again, the ears are okay. It's kind of the big, the big surfaces that it'll, you want the hair to be kind of really consistent. Yeah, I was looking at other carved bears, and when you have a larger carving, you can do more of like where the hair has like body to it, you know, because that's kind of what's forming all of this anyway. And there's a style which I haven't really gotten down in, unless it's like on a much larger piece, where you don't really do the individual hairstyle at all. You see, this is where the issue will happen, because I basically just ran the cut straight in there. I should have brought it out a little sooner. What you can do is you stick it back in there, and then you do rotation and kind of just carve it out of there. Because you basically made a U-shaped stop cut, and you need to cut it out of there. Do a little bit of side to side. Hopefully, I don't tear too much off. Here. Alright, so we have like a little bit of a thing there. We'll just clean that up. Did it again on this side. Let's see if I can actually stop beforehand. There you go. Real gentle. Yeah, so this will leave a lot of hangnails, so it's little pieces. Toothbrush will work. And do the muzzle there. I tried to do like a little bit of a nose and mouth, and it really didn't work. This is good enough for stylized. Again, his hair is probably not going this direction in reality. Yeah, so you can see that the muzzle changed shape a little bit. Shouldn't have done that, maybe right there. And to be doing a lot of changes after you start doing hair, but you can. It's just you have to take a lot more surface off. Basically, take off all of the cut. Like if you kept going over these cuts just with this tool, it would have a funny look. They kind of have to have that clean flat spot in between and be separated for them to look basically like you meant to do it. And I want this flat spot kind of here, this broad space, so I'm really trying to dolphin it out, because the wood's not going to do it for me. Only when you're on like a peak does it cut the best and cleanest. So if you guys are carving along, I'd love to see your bears. You can email me pics, and just to show me, or if you have any questions, or I always love to see you guys' work. You can email me at nosubject13@yahoo.com. And I'll put that in the description, as well as a link to the knife. And I'll do some, even though you can't print doing this corner piece, you can't really like print out a drawing of what the bear's supposed to look like, but I'll put some basic diagrams of the shape and what's going on. I'm going to try to do an article to submit to the carving magazine, and so there should be, I'll post those too, some step-by-steps, if there's not enough imagery in this video of what's going on. So you can see I get around this problem again. Got the funkiness going on. If you get real frustrated with it, you don't think it's gonna smooth out, you can just kind of cut along it. And again, just keep in mind that you want that cut to look like you're meaning to do it. Nope, let me just hold out some more of this part. Actually, we don't have time to do all this. Making it real pretty. Making these strokes a little bit longer. So you can see on the back the pattern's kind of important. Again, you can think about it like little rows of grass. I'm gonna go the other direction right there. This is where it was getting funky in the wood, where we're getting those tear-outs in the leg. And I can barely see where all you guys can, the shadow. So you can see I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Oops, and I'm turned around the other way. Nope, it's just right against the grain right there. When you're doing a little cut like that, you don't want it to jam in right there. So I'm using back pressure with my thumb and hand, my fingers pressed right here, so that when it snaps, it won't go very far. just went along with that because it was tearing, and it marks his ends. Okay. A few long hairs are alright. We're not going to get, on this bear, we're not going to be able to get the hair all the way in there. But if you can't get the tool in there, people can't see it. Not the easiest place to get to. Where does that tear out part? I'm kind of rushing through this. I'm not sure if I'm showing the video or not. But you can also tell that doing a sloppy job works just as well. Use a little more here. Alright. Okay, we've missed a few spots a little bit. Alright, I might clean them up a little bit with a toothbrush that I talked about. But this is pretty much our bear. I painted one of them brown. Looks pretty good. This project would really work well in walnut wood. Although that would take longer. And so I wouldn't be able to videotape that. It's already pretty long. Let me go get my other bears and we'll take a look at them. Alright, let's talk about bears. Okay, so this is the small one I was talking about. And like, oops, the bears. Dial back on the bears. This is the painted one as well. So this was on a regular, like the normal size. And I folded his legs, and you know, he looks really decent. So you can definitely do this project. You do him the same as arms. You see there. This is colored with just watercolor. Basswood's really hard to do stains on, and like any type of painting is gonna be like, it's gonna leave too much material on there. It won't look like it's carved by wood anymore. So this is that same type of hair. Let's look at some of the different hairs we did. I think that's the same kind. Where's my guy? Oh, here. So this one, again, didn't do his legs. This is what I did with a V-tool. I think it just looks too like messy, even if it was cleaned up. It's just too harsh of a cut for the hair that we're looking for at this size. Okay, I tried to do like a stylistic one. I don't think it worked out at all, but I really liked. I'm gonna put this up a little bit here. I like the shape of this guy's head, and you can see this is an arms down. He looks messed up. It's okay. All of these are like I was just trying to get down what was going on with the head and face. I think this was the first one. He's very Mickey Mouse looking, you know, and I didn't really take in like the neck. Where's the one we just did? I didn't really take in the neck, right? You can see he still totally worked, but his face just kind of went in from the cheeks as opposed to leaning like this. So this is the geometric one that I really liked. I kind of like him like that. If it was with a nicer wood, you could just leave it. And I just kind of, you know, was looking at this shape and then leaving a side here. And I've tried to get back to that. It was not so successful. I think that was the one I did after. And then again, his arms are a little bit down. Kind of lost the face a little bit. I really liked this one at first. Before I put the hair on him, he was really cute. And this is where the ears went up, right? Instead of going out. And so I tried to do that again, but the ears were too far apart. And so I kind of dissed him in the middle there. Yeah, I think this one right here, I tried to do a U-tool that was a little bit bigger. And it's just a little bit like messier. Than what these guys look like. I think these guys have the best fur. And again, that was with this I don't know what they call it. It's a V-tool that's got a curve on it instead of quite a V. It's a mix between a V and a W. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and hopefully I'll be getting some more videos out soon. Happy carving.